Hello, my name is Nicole Renee Mensch, and today I want to share my thoughts on person-centered outcomes, and the 10 rules of the home and community-based services, or known as H.C.B.S. But first I would like to tell you a little bit about myself. Like I said, my name is Nicole Renee Mensch and I was born in 1960 and I was born dead, which caused me to have cerebral palsy. My pronouns are she/her/hers. When I was born I was not breathing. My dad gave me CPR for 5 minutes before I started breathing on my own. Today it is a lot different from the 60s, 70s and 80s. But before the Rehabilitation Act was signed in 1974, there wasn't any rights for people with disabilities. And before the disability movement, my dad had to fight for me to get a good education throughout my elementary school years, and even after the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act was signed into law in 1974, my dad still had to fight for me to get into high school in Rockport, Indiana and Madera, California to get a good education. In 1980 finally graduated high school and I wanted to get out on my own. But my mother didn't think that I could live independent, so they found a place in San Fernando, and it was like a convalescent home but for the disabled. I was only there for 5 months before they got tired of me for breaking the rules that they had. So they rented a house where 5 of us lived, and this is how I started to live on my own. This is also where I met my first wife. We got married and moved to Bakersfield, where I currently live. I got divorced in '89 because we could not get along. I have always worked because of my dad raised me to be responsible. In high school I worked as a secretary for the American Cancer Society for 2 years. While I was in Bakersfield I worked for Bakersfield College for the High-Tech Center for around 2 years. Then in '93 I went to volunteer at the Bureau of Land Management. When I went to be a volunteer as a computer tech, the supervisor took one look at me and asked, "How are you going to work on computers?" And I said, "Let me volunteer a week and I will show you how." By the end of the week I was hired, and I worked there for 2.5 years. In 1995 I met my second wife and we got married in October, and in the next year our son was born. We were only together for 12 years before we got a divorce. It was hard on our son, but we made it through it. In 2000 I started to work for the Independent Living Center for Kern County as the first assistive technology advocate in the state of California, and I worked for them for 4 years before I got a job offer for the Kern Assistive Technology Center here in Bakersfield as an assistive technology specialist. I worked there for 14 years. Before I was let go because they were downsizing, and now I am working for the Bakersfield ARC as a consumer coordinator and I love it. I have learned a lot over the last 9 months that I have been working here at the ARC, and I hope that I will be here for a while. As I just told you, I have been my own person. I make my own decisions, my own thoughts. I decide where I want to go, and where I want to work and be with. You see, you and I, disabled or not, we all should be treated the same way. You know, I have made some bad decisions in my life, but does that mean that I can't live independently? And the answer is no. We all have made mistakes in our lives. What I am trying to say is that people with disabilities need to be able to live their life like you and me. Yes, people with disabilities may need some help with their basic needs or help in making decisions, but everybody should have the opportunity and the right to live independently, and this is where the home and community-based services comes in play. Now you are asking yourself, what is the home and community-based services? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. Next slide. Federal requirement number 1. Access to the community. If individuals want to seek paid employment, Do they have access to competitive integrated employment opportunities? Yes, you can have a job like everyone else. Do individuals have the choice to receive related personal services in the community, rather than on-site, based on their needs, preferences, and abilities to the same degree as individuals not receiving regional center services? And the answer is yes, you can. Do individuals have access to transportation options, including public transportation, family/friends/ and volunteer organizations that promote ease of use and optimize individuals' independence, per their individual program plan? And the answer to the question is yes, you can. Do individuals have the option to control their personal resources, if applicable? Guess what? Yes, you do. Next slide. Federal requirement number 2. Choice of setting. The setting/service is selected by the individual from among various options, including non-disability specific options and an option for a private room in a residential setting. The options are identified and documented in the individual program plan and are based on the individual's needs, preferences, and, for residential settings, resources available for room and board. Does the provider have a current Regional Center Individual Program Plan, IPP, on file for all individuals? Does everyone's IPP document the different options that were considered prior to selecting this service and that the current provider selected was based on the individual needs and preferences? And the answer is that they better. Federal requirement number 3. Right to be treated well. The setting/service ensures an individual's rights of privacy, dignity, respect, and freedom from coercion and restraint. Does the provider inform individuals, in a manner they can understand, of their rights to privacy, dignity, respect, and freedom from coercion and restraint? Does the provider have policies and procedures that address individuals' rights of privacy, dignity, respect, and freedom from coercion and restraint? Does the provider conduct communications, both verbal and written, about an individual's personal information in a manner that ensures privacy and confidentiality? Next slide, please. Does the provider ensure individuals have privacy while using the bathroom and when assisted with personal care? Do staff communicate with individuals based on their needs and preferences, including alternative methods of communication where needed, e.g. assistive technology, braille, large font print, sign language, participants' language, etc.? Are individuals allowed to dress or groom in a manner that is appropriate to the setting while honoring individual choice and lifestyle preferences? Are all individuals able to visit with others in private? Next slide, please. Does the facility ensure staff is knowledgeable about the capabilities, preferences, interests, and needs of the individuals they serve? Is there a place for individuals to store belongings in a secure manner, e.g., nightstand, lockbox, room, closet? Are all individuals able to talk on the phone or comparable technology, text, and read mail/email in private? Next slide, please. Does the provider impose restrictions regarding access within the service location, inside or outside, for individuals or visitors? And the answer is no, they shouldn't. Does the provider utilize restraints? And the answer is no, they shouldn't. Side note. Restraint means control of the client's behavior or activities through the use of physical or pharmaceutical means other than postural supports. For providers that utilize restraints, acceptable explanations may include identifying policies that require documentation of the use of interventions and/or restraints in the individual program plan, that informed consent prior to the use of restraints has been obtained, or that it is the provider's policy to ensure that individual supports and plans to address behavioral needs are specific to the individual and not the same for everyone else in the setting. Next slide. Federal requirement number 4. Independence. The setting/service optimizes but does not regiment individual initiative, autonomy, and independence in making life choices, including daily activities, physical environment, and with whom to interact. Do individuals have input into and choice among daily activities that are based on the individual's needs and preferences? Do individuals have the ability to control their own schedules? Does the provider structure its support so that individuals are able to interact with people they choose to interact with, both at home and in community settings including non-disabled peers other than paid staff and volunteers? Does the provider structure their support so that the individual is able to participate in activities that interest them and correspond with their IPP goals? Can individuals choose to spend time, including dining, alone or in a private area? Does the provider support individuals' autonomy to make personal decisions such as practicing religion and voting? And the answer should be yes. Federal requirement number 5. Choice of services and supports. The setting/service facilitates individual choice regarding services and supports, and who provides them. Does the provider support individuals in choosing which staff provide their care, for example gender or language spoken? Does the provider have a complaint/grievance policy for individuals and inform individuals how to file a grievance in communication methods outlined in their IPPs? Do individuals have opportunities to modify their services or schedules and/or voice their concerns in the manner and timing of their choosing and consistent with their communication abilities and preferences? If individuals are of retirement age, are they offered the choice to retire from a day or work program? And the answer is yes, they should. Next slide, please. Federal requirement number 6. Residential agreement. The unit or dwelling is a specific physical place that can be owned, rented, or occupied under a legally enforceable agreement by the individual receiving services, and the individual has, at a minimum, the same responsibilities and protections from eviction that tenants have under the landlord-tenant law of the state, county, city, or other designated entity. For settings in which landlord-tenant laws do not apply, the state must ensure that a lease, residency agreement, or other form of written agreement will be in place for each participant and that the document provides protections that address eviction processes and appeals comparable to those provided under the jurisdiction's landlord-tenant law. Does each individual have a lease, residency agreement, admission agreement, or other form of written residency agreement? Are individuals informed about how to relocate and request new housing? In the case of any possible eviction or involuntary relocation, are there policies and procedures in place to ensure individuals have and are informed of eviction protections and the appeals process? Next slide, please. Federal requirement number 7. Privacy. Each individual has privacy in his/her sleeping or living unit. 1 units have entrance doors lockable by the individual, with only appropriate staff having keys to doors as needed. 2 individuals sharing units have a choice of roommates in that setting. 3 individuals have the freedom to furnish and decorate their sleeping or living units within the lease or other agreement. Do individuals have a choice regarding roommates or private accommodations? Note: in regard to the question above, not every provider has to provide the option of a private room, but individuals must have a choice of who they share a room with. Do individuals have the option to change roommates, if desired? Do individuals have the option of furnishing and decorating their sleeping or living units in a manner that is based on their preferences, or with their own personal items? Do individuals have the ability to lock their bedroom doors when they choose? Are policies in place to ensure only necessary and appropriate staff have access to bedrooms, and are there protocols to ensure the policies are followed? And they should by any means, yes. Next slide please. Federal requirement number 9. Right to visitors. Can individuals go with visitors outside the home, such as for a meal or shopping, or for a longer visit outside the home, such as for holidays or weekends? And yes, they should. Federal requirement number 10. Accessibility. The setting is physically accessible to the individual. Do individuals have the freedom to move about inside and outside the home, including bedrooms, bathrooms, and common spaces? Note: this question also refers to the presence of grab bars, seats in bathrooms, ramps for wheelchairs, etc. if individuals who need those supports are currently being served at the setting. Are appliances and furniture accessible to every individual? I think that this is a must. Does anyone have any questions?